What if you inherited an island so cursed that even stepping on its soil felt like inviting death? What if every shadow, every whisper in the wind, carried with it the pain of the thousands who died there? This isn't just any story. This is Poveglia Island, a place so haunted, so horrifying, that even seasoned paranormal investigators call it the gateway to hell. But why? What makes this island one of the most feared places in the world? Before we dive into the harrowing details of this cursed land, I urge you to subscribe to Mysteries Uncovered, your gateway to unraveling chilling tales like Atlantis, Skinwalker Ranch, and more. Trust me, you'll want to watch until the very last second because this story isn't just about history, it's about the nightmares that still live on this island today. At first glance, Poveglia Island looks like something out of a Venetian postcard. Its lush greenery, surrounded by the shimmering waters of the lagoon, seems almost inviting. But don't be fooled by its beauty. Beneath this picturesque surface lies a horrifying history. A history of pain, suffering, and death so profound that it has tainted every corner of this land. Locals refuse to step foot on the island. They say it's cursed, a land where the living don't belong. Some fishermen even claim that their nets come up empty near Poveglia, not because of a lack of fish, but because no living creature dares linger in its waters. In the 14th century, Europe was in the grip of the Black Death, a plague that wiped out millions in a matter of years. Cities were overwhelmed, bodies piled up in the streets, and fear of contagion spread like wildfire. Venice, desperate to protect its citizens, turned Poveglia into a quarantine island. But quarantine is a generous term. The truth is far darker. People infected with the plague were forcibly dragged from their homes and dumped on Poveglia, left to die in agonizing isolation. Imagine the despair of those who knew they would never return to their families, their homes. Imagine the sound of coughing, crying, and screaming echoing through the island's dense fog. To prevent the disease from spreading further, plague pits were dug, massive graves where thousands of bodies were burned. Some victims were thrown in alive, their screams muffled by the crackling of flames. Today, over 50% of Poveglia's soil is said to be composed of human ash. Those who have visited Poveglia often speak of an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair. But it's not just a feeling, it's as if the island itself is alive, mourning the countless lives lost on its soil. One chilling account comes from a construction team that attempted to restore the island in the early 2000s. Workers reported hearing faint cries for help, only to find themselves alone. Tools went missing, shadows moved across empty rooms, and some workers claimed to see ghostly figures wandering the ruins. The project was abandoned within weeks. As if the island's plague-filled history wasn't enough, the 20th century brought a new chapter of horror. In the 1920s, a psychiatric hospital was established on Poveglia. Patients, many of whom were already tormented by their own minds, were subjected to inhumane treatment. The lead doctor was a man of ambition but little morality. Obsessed with discovering a cure for mental illness, he performed gruesome experiments on his patients. Lobotomies, electric shocks, and other forms of torture were common. The screams of the patients could reportedly be heard across the lagoon, but the island fought back. According to legend, the doctor began to lose his mind, haunted by the very spirits of those he had tortured. One night, he climbed the bell tower and either jumped or was pushed to his death. Some say his ghost still lingers there, trapped in eternal torment. Today, paranormal investigators describe Poveglia as a place that doesn't just feel haunted, it feels alive. Whispers follow visitors as they move through the ruins. Shadows move without explanation. Some people even report hearing the faint sound of a bell, though the tower has long been silent. The workers digging into the earth were no strangers to death, but even they began to feel an unnatural weight on their shoulders. Whispers traveled among them, stories of tools that vanished in broad daylight, of shadows that moved across the ground when no one was there, and of faint cries emanating from the plague pits. They tried to dismiss these tales as tricks of the mind, but deep down, they all knew something was wrong. One fateful evening, a worker stayed behind, determined to finish his task before nightfall. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the crimson sky darkened into an ominous shade. He could swear he heard footsteps behind him, soft, deliberate, almost as if someone, or something, was watching him. He turned quickly, his lantern trembling in his hand, but there was no one there. And then, as he bent down to grab his shovel, he felt a cold, bony hand grip his shoulder. The next morning, his body was found lifeless with no signs of injury, just a look of sheer terror frozen on his face. Years later, during the asylum's operation in the early 20th century, the horrors of Poveglia took on a new form. Patients subjected to barbaric treatments endured unimaginable suffering. Electroshock therapy was a daily routine, often carried out in overcrowded dark rooms. Cries of agony echoed through the asylum's crumbling halls, but the staff were indifferent. For them, the patients were not people. They were experiments. The doctor in charge of the asylum began to change. At first, he was known for his calm demeanor, but soon, he started acting strangely. He would pace the halls at night, muttering to himself about voices, telling him what to do. He claimed he could feel the spirits of the plague victims watching him. His colleagues dismissed his behavior as exhaustion, until one night, he snapped. Witnesses reported hearing the doctor scream from the bell tower, shouting incoherently about the shadows and the faces. Some say he was pushed from the tower by the ghosts he claimed to see, while others believe he jumped in a desperate attempt to escape his madness. His broken body was found at the base of the tower, and the asylum shut down shortly after. The locals, however, are convinced that his spirit never left. In the decades since the asylum closed, brave, or perhaps foolish, explorers have ventured onto Poveglia Island. One group of paranormal investigators claim to have recorded eerie voices calling their names despite being alone in the ruins. Others have reported sudden temperature drops, unexplained scratches on their bodies, and equipment that malfunctioned without explanation. One particularly chilling account comes from a tourist who managed to sneak onto the island in the dead of night. He described hearing faint cries of a woman in distress, but when he followed the sound, it led him to a crumbling building. Inside, he found nothing but empty halls and the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. But as he turned to leave, he saw it, a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. It didn't move, didn't speak. He ran as fast as he could and never returned. What is it about Poveglia that continues to draw people in despite its dark history? Is it the thrill of the unknown? Or is it something deeper, a call from the spirits of the past begging to be heard? Perhaps the island itself is alive, feeding off the energy of those who dare to step onto its cursed soil. The horrors of Poveglia Island are more than just stories. They are a reminder of humanity's darkest moments. The island is a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural collide, creating an enigma that will forever haunt those who learn of its secrets. As we conclude our haunting journey through Poveglia Island, one question lingers. Why do places like this hold such a powerful grip on our imagination? Is it the thrill of uncovering the unknown, or the chilling reminder of humanity's darkest chapters? Poveglia Island isn't just a relic of the past. It's alive, breathing with the whispers of those who suffered here. Their cries, their stories, their torment are etched into its soil, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. But beware, for those who dare to seek answers often find more than they bargained for. If this story intrigued you, don't stop here. Dive into more mysteries with us. Explore our videos on Atlantis, the Skinwalker Ranch, and the Bermuda Triangle, each one filled with secrets waiting to be unraveled. And don't forget to subscribe to Mysteries Uncovered, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. And here's a little teaser for next week's thrilling series, Mysterious Disappearances. We'll start with a chilling story of Flight MH370, a disappearance that still baffles the world to this day. You don't want to miss it. So hit the like button, share this story with your friends, and let's keep exploring the unexplained together. See you next week.